What are 3D memes? And how are they made? Well, listen up and I'll tell you a story about how that happens. First thing you need to do is get Blender. No, not that type of Blender. Try again. There it is. It's an app. Okay, once you have that, download the 3D model like this. Once it's downloaded, double click to open it up, then hit that button right there to display all the colors. And go ahead and click on the objects and edit them. Click on the text, go into edit mode, and type on the keyboard what you want it to say for whatever meme you're building. You can click on the rig, go to pose mode, and then select the little objects to pose the character. Go to object mode to move the entire object at once. When you're done editing and moving objects, go to your display properties right there and turn off bones, and then the rigs will be hidden and it's just the memes with your text and objects displaying. And that's it. That's all you have to do. But if you want to take it one step further, a deeper dive, if you will, follow along. Go to Edit, Preferences, click Add-ons. In the search bar, you want to type in Images. And make sure that checkbox is checked for Import Images as Planes. Then do Add Image as Plane. Find your reference image or sketch of what you want to model, scale it up a little bit on your screen. Now there's different ways to model objects, but this is just one of them. Click Add, and then click on where it says Meta Ball. And then you can move it and scale it to get started. Then click Shift D to duplicate. And just keep clicking Shift D to duplicate as many times as you need to get the basic shape of your object. It doesn't have to be perfect, it's just a relative shape. When you got the shape, select the object, click on Object, Convert to Mesh. Now select your object again, and in the mode, go to Edit mode, and then click on Faces. Now turn on X-ray so you can see all the faces and select all of them. You can rotate your view around a little bit, make sure you got all of them selected. Now click UV, Project from View, and click on UV Editing. So in here we can zoom in a little bit. We're going to want to make sure that the background is our reference photo. Change that and move it to where we want. Now in the Materials tab, assign that material to the object. Now it's kind of ghosted, which is, there's a weird setting in the Materials editor, so just go to the Materials editor and scroll down and then click uncheck Show Backface, and then the ghosting is gone. And you can adjust the settings of the material and adjust the shininess and the highlight and the contrast, different things. And then when you have everything the way you like it, you can move on. You notice that the model looks a little bit chunky, and the reason is because it's low poly. So we can just get rid of that chunkiness. Well, right click and say smooth shade, but then we also want to go to the modifiers tab and add a subdivision surface. And you can adjust the levels. Don't go too many levels. 1 or 2 is enough. Now to add a little more detail, we're going to switch to sculpt mode. And all these brushes are really cool. They all do different sculpting things. I'm just going to use a crease brush to add a little bit more definition in our model. Right down the middle. To get it a little bit closer to what we want. Then use the grab tool, just move things around just a little bit, not too much, and just refine the shape of our model. And then use flatten to kind of flatten out the ridges. That's it. Now I'm just going to duplicate that process for each part of the model. The hands, legs, body, head. Just do the same process. That's all there is to it. This is kind of a sped up version of it, just to show you what's happening, but it's basically the same thing. Yeah, there's lots of different ways to do this. This is just one of them. I thought I'd try it this time. Worked pretty good, actually. Then you just like before, just go into sculpting and kind of defining the edges of the mouth a little bit more. Now I'm going to go to display properties and display the edges, the wireframe, and it's a little bit dense, so I'm going to add a modifier called decimate. And it doesn't look like anything happens, but if we adjust the ratio number, you can see we can adjust the exact number of polygons that we want. It can be really low poly or medium or high. We can do whatever we want, and the texture info is still intact, and the shape and everything is good. So that's really nice, especially if you're building video games. You can take any model that you're working on and adjust the amount of polygons it has, higher to lower, without ruining your textures and your shapes that you already like. Now we're just going to delete so that it looks more like exact half of a model, because we're going to duplicate it and make both sides the same and then join them together. Let's just go over really quick again, review, go into edit mode, select faces to project this texture. Same thing before, UV, project from view. And then move those UVs to the part of the reference photo where we want our texture colors to come from. But we also want to do the back a different set, because if you were to paint something on the front, it would automatically show up on the back because the UVs are projecting through right now. So we're going to project another view just of those back UVs, so that they're separate, so that we could paint some different colors on the back if we needed to than the ones that are on the front. That can be really helpful later on in a lot of situations. This is just modeling the eye. I'm just using a sphere, pretty simple, and then adjust it a little bit to get the exact shape. Just going and switching from object mode to edit mode, and then projecting the texture. Same thing as before, not much to it. Now we're gonna, you see these seams where the back and the front projection textures came in, and then I can go into texture paint mode and use a clone brush to kind of clean up those edges a little bit so you don't see the seams between the back and the front. Now I'm making a torus, to make the eyelid and adjust the segments right after you click create, and then rotate it and move it and scale it into place. Then use the sculpt grab tool just to push it just into the right place, and then give it a darker texture. Now I need to select those points and scale them in the x-axis to make them nice and straight, because we're gonna duplicate it and we want that middle line to line up perfectly. So that's a little trick you can do. We also want to do the same thing to the UVs, because if we ever needed to paint the textures, we want the textures on both sides to be lined up. So we can do painting either in Photoshop or in just right on the model itself, but you want to keep the line down the center pretty clean. Now hit Shift D to duplicate those objects and scale it negative, and then do the same thing to the UVs. So you're going to grab all those UVs and scale them negative and push them over to the other side for the back and the front, because this is the other side of the model now. So now we're going to join those together. Select both sides, click Object, Join, and that will make the two duplicated objects into one object. Now we line up those UVs as best we can, and then grab the points of the mesh and line those up the best we can. Now we still need to merge those points together so that they're actually fused into one solid object. So we right click on it with them, all those points selected, and say merge vertices by distance, and then type in a distance. You can experiment with different distances, but you want to be able to merge the close ones together but not merge too many. Don't make that, I did 0.3 for my purposes. And you get this weird artifacting, this weird reflection down the middle still, and that's because the normals are not aligned, because it came from two objects into one. So we have to align, realign those normals, and it's kind of a complicated process to think about. But we go into faces and I'll select all the faces, and we just click Mesh, Normals, Recalculate Outside, and that's it. And that smooths out that center artifact, and so now it looks all nice and smooth and solid. Now I'm just gonna grab some of these points of the mouth and just adjust little tiny tweaks just to get a better look for the mouth. And then it looks a little bit small, so I'm gonna stretch out the mouth a little bit, make it bigger, a little bit more like a frog. And that's it. The model's done. We can delete that reference image. We don't need that anymore. So now we're going to work on putting in bones so that we can pose the character. So click Edit, Preferences, click Add-ons, and type in the search bar Rig. And you want to check box that Rigify box. Now click Add, and we can add an Armature Human Meta Rig and scale it up and move it into place to match the size of the model. Now go to the Rig tab and click In Front, and that will allow us to see the bones inside the mesh. Now go into edit mode and select the face bones, and we can delete those. We don't need those for this one. Now go into your tools menu, options, click X-axis mirror. Now whatever you do on one side we'll do to the other side. and just align all the bones with the model where they're supposed to go. Now once you have that done, click Object, Apply Rotation Scale so that it holds those transformations. Then click on the Rig tab, Generate Rig. And you can just shut off the display and the rig properties of some of those tools you don't need. You just need certain ones that you need to be able to move. Now click the mesh, shift click the rig and say Parent with Automatic Weights. Now if you go into pose mode with the rig selected and you grab a foot object or a hand or anything that you need to move, you notice it's kind of pulling some of the parts of the mesh that aren't correct. So you go into weight paint mode and click on the options Auto Normalize. That will do the appropriate amount of weight for each bone. So then you can select on the bone in the editor on the right side and then use Add and Subtract to get the weights for each bone. So this is the shoulder, so I'm painting the red part is that shoulder bone is affecting the shoulder. Then go to Subtract. The shoulder should not be affecting the head, so I'm subtracting. And then check all your bones, make sure they're affecting only the parts that they should be affecting. So now when you turn everything back on and you click on the rig, you go into pose mode. Now first we need to parent the eyes and the eyelids to the rig also. So select the eye, shift select the rig, go to Object, Parent with Automatic Weights, just like we did with the main mesh, but we have to do that with the eyes and the eyelids too. Now you go click on the rig, go into pose mode, and then you move and rotate these objects for the hands, head, feet, and body, and that's how you pose your character. That's all there is to it. And when you get the character in the pose you want, you can move the props. You have the heart is what I call a prop, and you can move those to align with your character to do whatever scene you're doing. And that's the pose. Now we're gonna add text and move it up a little bit here, and then rotate it 90 in the x-axis so it's standing up on end. That's the proper direction. Then we can select the text, and first we need to change our background color. So we'll go into shading and click world, and then click on background color and change the color to whatever we want. We want to do a darker background. Okay, now we can edit this text. Click on the text, go into edit mode, and just use the keyboard to type in whatever you want it to say. And when you're done typing, go back to object mode and move into place. And then in the text tab, you can adjust the settings like extrude amount. You move it into place, and then you can change your font. Pick which font you want, and then there it is.